Hello and welcome to another episode of today's GK. I am Pooja Divedi, and in this segment we bring to you objective questions on a daily basis to help you crack prelims. So let's begin with the practice question of last segment. Which of the following are the objectives of the JSON Continuity of Service JSON CS mission? It measures the height of the ocean, provides measurement of a global sea level rise. It measures marine pollution and also estimates the fish population. Select the correct answer using codes given below. A 1 and 2 only, B 2 and 3 only, C 1 and 3 only, or D 1, 2 and 3. So I hope you have answered it correctly in the comment segment. The correct answer for this question is A, that is 1 and 2 only. Only these two statements are correct. Let's move on to the explanation, please. JSON CS mission measures the height of the ocean, which is a key component in understanding how the Earth's climate is changing. Also, it is significant in ensuring the continuity of sea level observation and understanding how the entire ocean stores and distributes heat, water, and carbon in the entire climate system. Also, it supports operational oceanography by providing improved forecasts of ocean currents, winds, and wave condition. It also improves both short-term forecasting for weather predictions and long-term forecasting for seasonal conditions like El Nino and La Nina. Now, let's move on to the first question for today's segment. Consider the following statements. First, the asteroid belt is located between the orbits of the planets Jupiter and Mars. Second, comets have an eccentric orbit. Which of the statements given above are correct? A1 only, B2 only, C both 1 and 2, D neither 1 nor 2. So I hope you have thought through and answered it correctly in your minds. The correct answer for this question is C. That is both 1 and 2. Both of these statements are correct. Now let's move to the explanation. If we talk about asteroids, asteroids orbit the sun and they are small bodies in the solar system, and they are made up of metals and rocks. They tend to have shorter and elliptical orbits. If we talk about elliptical orbits, that's tilted in nature. The asteroid belt is located roughly between the orbits of Jupiter and Mars, and they are torus shaped in nature. If we see what are torus shape, it means this is the shape. This is what is known as torus shape. Alright? So it's a torus shaped region in the solar system and works roughly between the planets of Jupiter and Mars. Also, comets. Comets are the second part of the question. Comets are made up of ice and hydrocarbons, and these bodies have an eccentric orbit. That means like this, right? When comets approach towards the sun, what happens? Some part of their ice start to melt, and the other materials also vaporize due to the heat of the sun. And this results in glowing halo that extends outward in the space. That means this is a comet and it approaches the sun. Because of the heat of the sun, there is a trail which is made, right? Because it is getting evaporated. So let's move on to our next question. Look at this question. Which of the following industries are part of the index of industrial production? Coal, crude oil, natural gas, refinery products. Now let's look at the options, because you have to select the correct answer using code given below. A 1 and 2 only, B, 2 and 3 only, C, 1, 3 and 4 only, or D, 1, 2, 3 and 4? Look at the options once more. Coal, crude oil, natural gas and refined products. So I hope you have answered it correctly. The correct answer for this question is D, that is 1, 2, 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3 and 4. All of these are part of the IIP. Now let's move on to the explanation. If we talk about an index of industrial production, it shows the growth rates in different sectors of industry groups of the economy in a fixed period of time, and it is published on a monthly basis by National Statistical Office, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, or MOSPI. It is a composite indicator that measures the growth rate of the industry, and groups classified under it are as follows. We are going to look at the groups now. Broad sectors including mining, manufacturing and electricity. Then next in line comes use-based sectors, which include basic goods, capital goods and intermediate goods. Do keep these sectors in mind. Then the 8 core industries represent 40%, about 40% of the weight of the entire items that are included in the IIP. Now, if we talk about the 8 core industries in decreasing order of their weightage, right? So this includes, first comes refinery products, then after that electricity, steel, coal, crude oil, natural gas, cement, and the last fertilizers, right? The base year, if we talk about calculating for IIP, is 2011 and 12. Now let's move on to the next question. Biological oxygen demand is a standard criterion for A, measuring oxygen levels in blood, B, computing oxygen levels in forest ecosystems, C, pollution assay in aquatic ecosystems, D, assessing oxygen levels in high altitude regions. So I hope you have answered it correctly in your minds. The correct answer is C, that is pollution assay in aquatic ecosystems. If we talk about BODs, these are water pollution by organic waste in terms which are measured in terms of biological oxygen demand. Now, BOD is the amount of dissolved oxygen which is demanded or needed by bacteria in order to decompose the organic waste which are present in the water. Also, it is expressed in milligrams of oxygen per liter of water. If you want to know more about it, the higher the value of BOD is there, it indicates low dissolved oxygen content of water. Since BOD is limited to only biodegradable products, then it is not a reliable method of measuring water pollution because it is just limited to one section, that is biodegradable materials. Alright, now let's move forward to our next question, please. Global Gender Gap Index is published by A, World Bank, B, World Economic Forum, C, International Monetary Fund, D, New Development Bank. So I hope you have answered it correctly. Yes, we don't need much time for this. It's B, that is World Economic Forum. So let's move on to the explanation. Now, if we talk about India, India has been ranked 112th among 153 countries in the annual Global Gender Gap Index for 2020. Please keep these facts in mind. Alright, and also remember the position of India prior to this year. It is published by the World Economic Forum, and the WEF published its first such index in the year 2006. It measures the fact on It measures the position of certain criterions which are economic participation and opportunity, also educational attainment, health and survival, political empowerment. Now, over the index, the highest point possible is 1, that means equality, and the lowest possible point is 0, that means inequality. Now, among the 153 countries studied, India is the only country. India is the only country where the economic gender gap is larger than political gender gap. Please do remember this fact that India is the only country where the economic gender gap is larger than political gender gap. Now, moving forward, look at this table. The topmost performing countries in this particular index are Iceland, Norway, and Finland, mostly Scandinavian countries. Then I'm going to tell you what kind of questions they ask in prelims. They can ask you which are the countries which fall above India in the global gender gap index. So these are the countries above India. China is there, Sri Lanka, Nepal. These countries are performing better than India. If we talk about which countries have position lower than India, Japan is there, Pakistan and Yemen. Alright, so keep these facts in mind. Moving forward, look at our next question, please. Which of the following Indian states shares a border with Nepal? Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh, West Bengal, Assam, Sikkim. Now you have to select the correct answer using code given below. Nepal has been a lot in news. So the correct answer for this question, but before we have to see the options. A, 1 and 2 only, B, 1, 3 and 4 only, C, 3, 4 and 5 only, D, 1, 2, 3 and 5 only. Look at the options of countries, states once more. Look at the options again. So the correct answer is D, that is 1, 2, 3 and 5 only. Now let's look at the states. These are Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh, West Bengal and Sikkim. 1, 2, 3 and 5 only. 1, 2, 3 and 5 only. Right? So let's move on with our explanation. In that you will see what are the countries and what are the states which share its borders with Nepal, Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh, West Bengal, Sikkim and Bihar. Now let's move on to the map. Look at this region. Our country, India, then comes Nepal, Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh, Sikkim, right? And also West Bengal. Now let's move forward to the explanation. Now Nepal is right in the middle of India's Himalayan frontiers. That is why it is so important. Along with Bhutan. It acts as a northern borderland, flanks and acts as a buffer against any possible transgressions from China. Like Tibet was our buffer till 1969. Now we have Nepal and Bhutan. Rivers originating in Nepal feed the perennial river system of India as well. And in terms of ecology and hydropower projects, it is so important. And many Hindu and Buddhist religious sites are in Nepal, which makes it culturally more important for pilgrimage. If we talk about Indians' relationship with Nepal. Now let's look at the next question. With reference to National Portal for Transgender Persons, consider the following statements. First, it has been launched in consonance with Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Rules 2020. Second, it would help transgenders in digitally applying for a certificate and identity card from anywhere in the country. Which of the statements given above is are correct? A, 1 only, B, 2 only, C, both 1 and 2, D, neither 1 nor 2. So I hope you will be able to answer it correctly. The correct answer for this is C, that is both 1 and 2. Both of these statements are correct. Now moving to the explanation, please. Now, National Portal for Transgender Persons, it has been launched in consonance with the Transgender Persons Rules, Protection of Rights Rules of 2020. And under this, the transgenders could digitally apply for a certificate and an identity card from anywhere in the country, thus preventing any physical contact and physical interaction with the officials, which is so harassing for them sometimes, and they don't want to go through that entire process. So that is why this portal has been launched. It will help them track the status of application, rejection, and grievance redressal system, which will ensure transparency in the entire process. And the issuing authorities are also under strict timelines to process the certification and application and issue certificates as well as I-cards without any necessary delays. Now, let's look at our next question. The Tramka Conservation Area recently in the news is located in which of the following borders? A, India and Nepal, B, India and Bangladesh, C, India and Myanmar, D, India, Bhutan. I hope you would be able to answer it correctly, please. The correct answer for this question is D, that is India and Bhutan. Let's look at the explanation. The Transboundary Manas Conservation Area, or TRAMCA, has received the Conservation Excellence Award for 2020, and it was conceptualized in the year 2011 with the vision to jointly develop and manage transboundary conservation area between Bhutan and India for the benefit of the people as well as the wildlife, of course. And the Tramka landscape has an area of over 6,500 square kilometers, which forms a vital mosaic of conservation spaces across eastern Himalayas and covers the entire Manas Tiger Reserve in India, 4 protected areas in Bhutan, and also 2 biological corridors. That means it is so vitally important for our wildlife system. Now let's move on and talk about the Manas Tiger Reserve in India and Royal Manas National Park in Bhutan. They form the core, okay? They form the core of this biologically outstanding transboundary area that is home to tigers, elephants, rhinos, and more than 1,500, can you imagine? 1,500 species of mammals, birds, and vascular plants. The Manas River flowing through the Royal Manas National Park and Manas National Park also makes both parts an important watershed areas. Now, let's move on to our next question. With reference to brain fingerprinting, consider the following statements. First, it is a neuropsychological method of interrogation in which the accused's participation in the crime is investigated by studying their brain's response. Second, it involves a question-answer session with the accused. Which of the statements given above are correct? A, 1 only, B, 2 only, C, both 1 and 2, D, neither 1 nor 2. So I hope you have answered it correctly in your minds. The correct answer is A, that is 1 only. It means it doesn't involve a question-answer session with the accused. Only the first statement is correct. So why is it in news? Because a team of CBI officers who are probing the alleged rape and murder of a 19-year-old Dalit girl in Hathras have arrived in Gandhinagar based forensic science laboratory with the 4 accused for brain electrical ossification, then signature profiling. Please learn this. Brain electrical ossification, then signature profiling or BEOSP test. Brain electrical ossification, signature profiling. Okay. This is also known as brain fingerprinting in normal terms, and it is a neuropsychological method of interrogation in which the accused's participation in the crime is investigated by studying the brain's response, and the BEOSP test is carried out with a process known as electroencephalogram. Electroencephalogram. It conducted to study the electrical behavior of human brains, because when our brain behaves, it behaves through electrical waves. Under this test, the consent of the accused is first taken, and then they are made to wear caps with dozens of electrodes attached to them to measure the waves. And the accused, they are shown visuals or played audio clips which is related to the crime to check if there is any triggering of neurons in the brain when they go throughout this process, right? This test results are then studied to determine the participating of the accused in the crime. The participation basically is measured. The BEOSP procedure does not involve a question-answer session with the accused and is rather a neuropsychological study. Now, let's move on to the next question. Which of the following countries has recently passed a legislation to make sanitary products free? A. Denmark, B. Scotland, C. Finland, D. Sweden. So I hope you have answered it correctly. The correct answer is B. Scotland. So the Scottish Parliament passed a landmark legislation that has done what? Right? That has made period products such as sanitary pads and tampons free of cost to those who are in need and end period poverty. And one of its central objective is to end the silence and stigma that surrounds menstruation and also aims to remove gendered barriers. The bill aims to ensure that those who menstruate have a reasonably convenient access to period products that are free of charge. Now, let's move on to our next question. TOPS scheme recently in the news is related to which of the following fields? A. Education, B. Health, C. Women empowerment, D. Sports. So I hope you have answered it correctly. The correct answer is D, that is sports. So let's move on to the explanation. At the 50th meeting of the Mission Olympic Cell, the decision to include 8 para-athletes in 4 different sports, namely para-athletics, para-shooting, para-badminton and para-table tennis into Target Olympic Podium or TOPS, Target Olympic Podium Scheme or TOPS was taken. The Target Olympic Podium Scheme is a flagship program of Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports, which is an attempt to provide assistance to India's top athletes. Also, the scheme looks to add a premium to the preparation of these athletes in order to make them win Olympic medals in the year 2020 and 2024. Under the scheme, the Department of Sports shall identify those athletes who have the potential of winning medals in 2020 and 2024 Olympics. The idea of the scheme is to also keep an eye in the future and fund a developmental group of athletes who are medal prospects for the year 2024, the Olympic Games in Paris and Los Angeles Games in 2024. 8. Visionary. Now, let's look at the practice question for the next segment. The Roshni Act recently seen in the news is related to which of the following states? A. Chhattisgarh, B. Jammu and Kashmir, C. Uttarakhand, or D. Himachal Pradesh. So I hope you will be able to answer it correctly like you always have been doing in the comment segment. That's it for today. Tomorrow we shall meet again. Thank you so much for watching.